the next few minutes, you're going to discover why mammoth tusks grew in spirals that sometimes crossed each other, how these giants replaced their teeth 6 times using a conveyor belt system, and why their blood had special antifreeze properties. But first, we need to address the biggest misconception about these Ice Age icons. You'll learn about the 10 different mammoth species, see evidence of the last survivors, and understand why scientists believe they can resurrect these creatures using genetic engineering. The mammoth's true story is far more complex than you ever imagined. Most people think they know what a mammoth looks like, but they're picturing just one member of an ancient dynasty that ruled multiple continents. When you see that familiar shaggy creature in museums or movies, you're looking at the woolly mammoth, the final chapter of a much larger story. The reality is far more complex and fascinating than most people realize. The word mammoth doesn't describe a single species, but represents an entire genus called Mammoths, containing over 10 distinct species that dominated landscapes across 4 continents. These weren't just different populations of the same animal. They were separate species with unique characteristics, survival strategies, and evolutionary paths that developed over millions of years. Each species adapted to specific environments, creating a diverse family tree that stretched from the hot savannas of Africa to the frozen tundras of Siberia. The size differences alone are staggering. Mammoths imperator, known as the imperial mammoth, weighed over 26,000 pounds and stood nearly 14 feet tall at the shoulder, making it one of the largest land mammals ever recorded. At the other extreme island, populations evolved into miniature forms standing just 4 feet tall, a phenomenon scientists call island dwarfism. These tiny mammoths lived on Mediterranean islands like Sicily and Sardinia, where limited resources forced them to shrink over thousands of generations. The mammoth empire began in Africa around 5 million years ago, with early species that resembled modern elephants more than their famous woolly descendants. From there, the southern mammoth migrated into Europe and Asia, establishing populations that would later give rise to the steppe mammoth. This intermediate species became the ancestor of the woolly mammoth, which eventually spread across northern Eurasia and into North America via the Bering Land Bridge. Different species existed simultaneously across various regions, creating a complex network of mammoth populations. While Mammoths meridionalis roamed southern Europe, Mammoths trogontheriae dominated the steppes of Central Asia. Meanwhile, Mammoths columbi inhabited the warmer regions of North America, and the woolly mammoth claimed the harsh northern territories. Each environment presented unique challenges that shaped their evolution in remarkable ways. Some developed longer, denser fur for Arctic conditions. Others grew specialized teeth for processing different vegetation types. Tusk shapes varied dramatically between species, reflecting different feeding behaviors and environmental needs. The diversity was incredible, with each species becoming perfectly adapted to their specific ecological niche. Yet among all these remarkable creatures, one species stood above the rest as the ultimate survivor. The woolly mammoth, or Mammothus primigenius, became the most specialized and successful member of this diverse family, outlasting all its relatives through the harshest periods of the Ice Age. But what made the woolly mammoth so special that it outlasted all its relatives requires examining its remarkable biological engineering. The woolly mammoth's body was essentially a biological fortress designed to survive conditions that would kill most animals within hours. Picture the extreme challenges of Ice Age survival, where temperatures plummeted to levels that would freeze modern elephants solid. These conditions created an environment where only the most specialized creatures could survive, and the woolly mammoth developed adaptations that seem almost engineered by nature itself. The mammoth's defense against the cold began with an incredible fur system that functioned like a high-tech winter coat. The outer layer consisted of guard hairs reaching up to 35 inches long on the flanks, and underside creating a protective barrier against wind and moisture. Beneath this outer shield lay dense underwool that trapped warm air close to the skin, forming an insulation layer that modern synthetic materials struggle to match. On the upper legs, these hairs extended up to 15 inches, while foot hairs measured 6 inches long, reaching all the way to the toes to prevent frostbite. Underneath this remarkable fur system, mammoths possessed a subcutaneous fat layer up to 4 inches thick. This massive layer of blubber acted like a built-in survival suit, maintaining core body temperature even when external temperatures dropped far below freezing. The fat worked in combination with the fur to create a thermal barrier that modern Arctic animals would envy. Even more impressive was the mammoth's specialized blood chemistry. Their hemoglobin contained 3 specific mutations that prevented freezing and improved oxygen delivery throughout the body in extreme cold. This adaptation allowed them to maintain normal physiological functions at temperatures that would shut down other mammals' circulatory systems completely. Anatomical modifications further reduced heat loss through the careful surface area management. Their ears measured only 15 inches long and 7 to 11 inches across, drastically smaller than modern elephant ears. Their tails stretched just 14 inches in length, minimizing exposure to the elements. These proportional changes eliminated vulnerable extremities that could freeze and endanger the entire animal. Perhaps most fascinating was the trunk's specialized heating system. Scientists discovered that mammoth trunks possessed a fleshy expansion about a third above the tip ellipsoidal in cross-section and double the normal diameter. This expansion functioned as a fur mitten that could warm the sensitive trunk tip during winter foraging. The mammoth could curl its trunk into this expansion to maintain temperature while searching for food, and even use it to melt snow when water sources froze over. These adaptations worked so effectively that mammoths became the dominant megafauna across the harsh mammoth steppe environment that stretched from northern Asia through Europe to North America. They thrived in conditions that represented a frozen nightmare for most other creatures. But surviving the cold was just one challenge. Mammoths also needed specialized equipment to find food buried under feet of snow. Every part of a mammoth's body was a precision tool, from their spiral tusks to their conveyor belt teeth system. These creatures weren't just large furry elephants wandering the Ice Age landscape. They were living Swiss Army knives, with each anatomical feature serving multiple survival functions that allowed them to thrive where other animals would perish. The mystery of mammoth tusks puzzled scientists for decades. Why would nature design tusks that grew in seemingly impractical spiral curves, sometimes crossing each other in ways that appeared counterproductive? The longest male tusk on record measured 13.3 feet along the outer curve and weighed 255 pounds. Female tusks were smaller but still impressive at 5 to 6 feet long. The spiral design wasn't a flaw, but brilliant engineering that distributed weight and reduced torque, keeping the massive ivory closer to the skull and reducing strain on the neck. These enormous curved tusks functioned as sophisticated snowplows, allowing mammoths to reach buried vegetation under feet of frozen ground. Preserved tusks reveal flat, polished sections up to 12 inches long, along with distinctive scratches on the outer curvature where they contacted the ground. This wear pattern shows exactly how mammoths used their tusks to dig through ice and snow-stripped bark from trees and excavate plants from frozen soil. The mammoth's dental system was equally remarkable. Unlike humans who get one replacement set, mammoths replaced their molars 6 times throughout their lifetime using a conveyor belt mechanism. They maintained 4 functional teeth at any given time, 2 in each jaw, while new teeth formed at the back and pushed forward as the front ones wore down. Each molar contained up to 26 separated ridges of enamel covered in prisms directed towards the chewing surface. These complex teeth were specifically designed for grinding the tough tundra grasses that dominated their environment. The trunk served as a multi-purpose appendage that functioned as both limb and precision instrument. The 2-fingered tip was perfectly adapted for wrapping around the short grasses of the Ice Age, while the trunk could also pull off large grass tufts, delicately pick buds and flowers, or tear off leaves and branches. Scientists discovered that mammoth trunks possessed a specialized fleshy expansion about a third above the tip, ellipsoidal in cross-section, and double the normal diameter, which likely helped with various foraging tasks. Evidence of mammoth intelligence appears throughout their behavioral patterns and tool use. Their problem-solving abilities in harsh environments combined with complex social structures made them incredibly successful survivors. This biological toolkit made mammoths so dominant that they ruled Ice Age ecosystems for hundreds of thousands of years across multiple continents. Yet despite all these incredible adaptations, mammoths still faced their greatest challenge, and it wasn't the climate. While ancient Egyptians were building pyramids, a small group of mammoths was fighting for survival on a remote Arctic island. This shocking timeline reveals that mammoths survived until approximately 4000 years ago, long after most people assume they went extinct. The Wrangel Island population represented the final chapter of the mammoth story, isolated by rising sea levels for roughly 5000 years after the last ice age ended. This isolation created a genetic time bomb that would ultimately doom the species. The small population of 300 to 1000 individuals experienced severe inbreeding over thousands of years, causing a 20% to 30% loss of heterozygosity and a 65% reduction in mitochondrial DNA diversity. These genetic bottlenecks led to devastating mutations that caused infertility, color blindness, and complete loss of smell through non-functional olfactory receptors. The mammoths were experiencing genomic meltdown, where small populations accumulate harmful mutations faster than natural selection can remove them. The combination of factors that finally ended the mammoth era involved climate change, potential human hunting, and this genetic degeneration. The first evidence of human presence on Wrangel Island dates to around 600 years ago, though some researchers believe the mammoths had already been extinct for several centuries before humans arrived. The exact cause remains debated, but the isolated population's genetic vulnerability likely made them unable to adapt to changing conditions. Remarkably, permafrost has preserved mammoth remains in almost perfect condition, including intact DNA, blood, and soft tissue. The recent discovery of 50,000-year-old remains of a baby mammoth nicknamed Yana represents the best preserved mammoth body ever found, complete with head, trunk, ears, and mouth. These exceptional specimens have laid the groundwork for ambitious de-extinction projects using genetic engineering techniques. Companies are now working to create mammoth-elephant hybrids by 2028 through methods like replacing elephant egg cell nuclei with mammoth tissue nuclei, or artificially inseminating elephant eggs with frozen mammoth sperm. However, these projects face enormous scientific challenges, including insufficient usable DNA and complex ethical debates about using elephants as surrogate mothers. Ancient humans maintained deep connections with mammoths throughout prehistory. More than 70 dwellings constructed from mammoth bones have been discovered across the East European plain, while mammoth ivory was carved into Venus figurines and weapons. In some cultures, mammoth bones were interpreted as remains of dragons or giants, weaving these creatures into human mythology. The mammoth story continues today through both scientific resurrection efforts and their lasting impact on human culture, art, and our understanding of extinction. This complex relationship between humans and mammoths reveals why these creatures remain so important to our understanding of extinction and survival. Mammoths weren't just Ice Age survivors, but evolutionary masterpieces whose legacy continues to shape modern science and conservation efforts. Their sophisticated adaptations, from antifreeze blood to conveyor-belt teeth, represent millions of years of natural engineering that scientists are only beginning to understand. The current push to resurrect mammoths through genetic engineering forces us to confront profound questions about extinction, climate change, and humanity's relationship with nature. These creatures survived ice ages, continental shifts, and extreme environments, yet couldn't withstand the final pressures of isolation and human expansion. Their story offers crucial lessons for protecting today's endangered species before they face similar fates.